Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. Be sure to use code DNVR when you head on over there and sign up for a new account. I am your host, Rudo, joined as always by AJ Haefele. Today, we're answering some listener questions. It's been a while since we've jumped in on these questions from all y'all, so we figured it was time to get in on it since the Avs don't play for basically another week. AJ, how you feeling today? Feeling good? Ready to answer some questions?
I'm ready to answer questions, yeah.
All right, we'll take one out of two. It's not bad. First question coming from Avalanche Rich. Any thoughts on Grubauer getting an extension midseason before hitting free agency? Also, would you bring him back or test the waters with an Anderson or Ranta? If he continues to play the way he's played through the first chunk of the season, you got to think the Avs would want to bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for an excuse to keep the guy that is entrenched in your system already, is comfortable with how you do things. Goaltender transitions are some of the most unpredictable. I mean, goaltenders already are unpredictable, but goaltender transitions, leaving a cocoon that they're very comfortable with, creatures of habit, you know, every little meticulous detail, something that they're comfortable with, finding success with, and going to a totally different system, totally different coaching staff, totally different defense, totally different living environment, all of those things. I think it has a bigger effect on goaltenders than it does other players, than it does regular skaters. And so I think you're looking for an excuse to keep the guy that you have. And to be honest with you, Grubauer's been a top 5 goaltender this year. There isn't any need at the moment to do anything. A midseason extension would make no sense for him, unless the Avs rolled in and gave him basically Jacob Markstrom's contract. If they decided to do something crazy like that, then I could see Grubauer being like, well, I'm not going to get this on the open market, or this is exactly what I would be looking for on the open market, so I would take it. I don't think that the Avs would be willing to go crazy big like that, so I would be surprised if they rolled in with an offer, but I mean, it would be smart to
lock
approach
something down at least. Yeah.
To approach the team about it, it would be smart, but he doesn't have any reason to, especially with the way that he's playing financially. When you get this close to free agency, just let it play out.
Yeah. Is there, from the Avs side of it, the only real concern I could see at this point is maybe they want to see him get through this year without injury.
Yeah, well, and I mean, from Colorado's perspective, he still has everything to prove.
Yeah,
you know, he has to stay healthy. He has to be productive in the postseason. He has to get them out of the second round. That's not to say that if they don't get out of the second round, it'll necessarily be his fault, but like, onus is on him here. Like he has to prove it. He doesn't have a contract next year.
I mean, I think it's one of those situations where the Avs would probably be willing to sign him now, but the dollar value isn't going to be anywhere close to, say, like a Markstrom contract, and there's no reason Grubauer would put himself into a contract like that.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make a ton of sense. The middle ground isn't there yet, based on what we've seen so far this year. So neither the team nor Grubauer, I think, is going to be in a spot where they really want to get this done immediately. Yeah. With that being said, who knows 2 months from now?
From a purely business perspective side of this, from either side, it doesn't make a lot of sense. At some point, like if the Avs are like, look, we've liked what you've done, blah 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 blah, and he's like, hey, I'm comfortable here. You guys want to give me the kind of deal that I'm looking for? You know, the people side of this is what would drive a deal right now, not a business perspective side of it. And as we see in pro sports, as everybody knows, the business side of it,
yeah,
most frequently wins out.
Almost always, you would have to think. But we can move on to our next questions. I think we covered the Grubauer topic pretty well there. How many more games can be postponed before the NHL is in trouble of jeopardizing the season with Kirk Robinson? I found this question interesting, but I don't think you're going to get a straight answer here because I don't think the NHL season is in jeopardy of being canceled on the whole at all. I think they will finish the season no matter what.
Yep.
What does that look like? Is it still a 56-game season? Do they chop it to 40 if things go really bad? Do they just take however many games each team's played and go by points percentage? Maybe. But I don't think the season will get properly canceled ever.
Yeah, I think I don't think it's in any kind of danger of that. I think that we could be approaching the point right now where they have to seriously consider a pause.
Yeah, sure.
Just a 2-week
league-wide
reset button.
Yeah.
They don't have even if you don't consider the Olympics, they don't have a lot of time this summer to do all the stuff that they want to do because they are trying to get back onto the regular schedule.
Right. So they're trying to cram
fall.
Everything in. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're also, I think at this point that's probably a bigger consideration than the Olympics, because those are the Olympics are a complete unknown whether or not that's happening. So I don't think the NHL can reliably plan around any of that anymore until they get a concrete answer either way, which they probably won't do until it's way too late. So I just think that right now, there's actually a great article up on Japers Rink today about this exact topic, and they basically I agreed with the general premise. Wait, I mean, we're so close to vaccines being available on a really widespread level that just waiting an extra couple of weeks could do wonders for the league, right? Like you could once all of the people who are first in line for the vaccine get it, then we might be able to start having that conversation about these guys getting it and the coaches, staff, and players, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we're not there yet, and until we're there, these guys continue to just risk their health.
That's just the reality of the situation. And I mean, we saw the bigger leagues plow through, right? Baseball and football both said,
well, and the baseball's not even a good example because they plowed through 2 months.
Yeah, that's true. It was a very short season for baseball. But football, less games played, obviously. Nonetheless, it became pretty obvious they were going to finish their season by any means necessary.
I mean, for a league that only was playing one game per week, where teams were only have to play once per week, football was a fiasco.
Yeah.
And at the college level, don't even look at the college level. I mean, that team played 9 games, that team played 12 games, that team played 5 games.
The schedules were all over the place.
It was a
for sure
total nightmare. Football was a mess. Now, the NBA obviously is like the most comparable because
they play at the same time.
They each were in a bubble environment.
Similar schedules to the season, at least in a normal year.
The big difference is that NBA rosters are half the size of NHL rosters.
Yep.
So you're just not dealing with as many, just half the guys to worry about. So, but the NBA has done a good job. They've done a good job with it. They've been extremely careful. I mean, you look at that Pistons-Nuggets game, those guys were ready to tip off.
Yep. And
everything was ready to go, but they had a single inconclusive test, and they said, we're not taking that chance. Compare that to what happened in Minnesota last week, where
they get a positive test
Marcus
before
Foligno
game 2. Yeah.
Tests positive before the second game of the series. They played that game, get on an airplane, go to Denver, chill for a day, play the next day in Denver, and then a whole slew of tests, and now both teams are shut down. And it looks like it's going to get worse for the Wild, because today there was a piece out today that said, look, we expect it's working. I think Bill Guerin said it's working its way through the team. Yeah, we expect more positive tests. They were only shut down through, I think, Tuesday of this week.
Yeah, they're supposed to open up tomorrow, but we saw Sam Girard go on the COVID list yesterday for the Avs off of all of that. So
and we won't have we'll have another update on who got the additional tests and stuff in about 2 hours.
So don't be surprised if you see more names on there in a couple of hours.
Yeah, and so I mean, Minnesota, like, okay, well, they shut it down for a week, but if they have more positive tests, that's getting extended. And if you end up with 2 or 3 more for the Avs, you have to seriously consider through Thursday will not be enough.
The outdoor game is in serious trouble if a couple more Avs players
have
to go on protocol.
The outdoor game is in 12 days.
Yep.
Like at this point, the outdoor game might be Colorado's first game back.
Yep. At best. A couple of interesting questions from chat. Big Green Monster, we will get to your question a little bit later in the show. So just let you know I saw it. Not going to get to it just yet. Breckton asks, is there anything you would like this coaching staff to do to improve the team outside of the obvious us wanting to play Bowers and Kaut? Kind of the same question from Zach O'Donnell. If you had to replace Bednar with one other coach in the league, who would you replace him with and why? So kind of Avs coaching staff questions.
Jeez, I don't know. I mean, you think about who are the best coaches in the league, but do you really want to watch Barry Trotz turn Nathan MacKinnon into a 2-to-1 player?
Good. That would not be exciting hockey, would it?
I mean, you have the thing with Bednar, and this is something that does not come up very often. The Avs are built to play the way he wants to coach.
Yeah.
The synergy between the coaching staff and the front office has been there. They're in lockstep. Bednar wants them to play the way that they play. He wants them to get up and down and to do the things that they do well. He wants them to score in transition. He wants to do all this stuff. It's why he coaches to this way. There are very few in the NHL who I would pick over Jared Bednar right now to coach this group of talent.
Maybe John Cooper.
Yeah, John Cooper is the only name that I can think of off the top of my head where I would say I would consider
that stylistically for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because they play the same kind of hockey in Tampa Bay. They want to play to the skill level. They don't necessarily want to muck and grind. They can, but they don't necessarily want to. So I
agree. I think
I really
Bednar deserves a ton of credit for getting this team to where it is right now.
Yeah, because we've seen this team have success under him, and it's been on the ascent under his tutelage. The desire to move on from him kind of blows me away.
Yeah, I don't understand it either.
The difference between Sacco and Waugh and Bednar is so enormous that I just wonder the Avs fans who are absolutely critical of everything and are like, I think Jared Bednar is incompetent and the team succeeds despite him. Teams don't succeed despite their head coaches. They just don't.
And I mean, even looking back, look at how Bednar managed Tyson Barrie. as he got here. Obviously, the terrible year, everyone was bad. But in the following 2 years, Tyson Barrie had the 2 best offensive years of his career. So Bednar has gotten in here and understood how to get the most out of, honestly, the majority of his players. Like, as with every coach in every league, in every team, no coach is perfect, right? Coaches always love to play their vets a little bit too much, yada, yada, yada.
All those things are all extremely normal and annoying and frustrating,
But on the whole, Bednar has done nothing but good things for the Avalanche. It's hard for me to point out to Brechton's question of, is there anything you think the coaching staff could do better for this Avalanche team, though? The only thing that popped into my head was practice 4-on-4 a little bit, maybe.
Well, and like generate a more exciting power play.
Sure.
You have so much high-end talent to watch them stand around all the time. And like, there's a fine line there, right? Between, because I mean, anybody that's ever watched Naps practice in the last 2 years will tell you that.
Watch them blowing it up, yeah.
Well, it's like the coaches are literally on the ice screaming at them to play faster, play with pace, to move the puck quickly, to make fast decisions. And then they get into a game and they get the zone entry. And then Landeskog banks it off the wall, and he gives it to MacKinnon, and he's on that half wall, and Landeskog rotates down behind the net or down in front of the net, and then Makar's the lone guy up high as MacKinnon slowly works his way there, and he just cuts off his own options, and everybody starts standing still, and it's just like...
Honestly, even that's been somewhat better this year, I think, though. It comes and goes, but...
And all special teams...
Of course. You're starting to see this year the issue of cuteness, right? Especially on that first unit. They're passing up a lot of shots to make that one extra pass.
It is also the double-edged sword of talented players.
Mm-hmm.
Because the one nice thing about this Avs break is that I've gotten a chance to watch a lot of other teams, and the thing that I'm watching a lot of is power plays. Because I want to know, is my frustration just the eye test? I haven't looked into analytics and the expected goals and all that stuff being generated. I also still really struggle with expected goals as like a meaningful tool.
Sure.
I
mean, I think
it's
a useful tool to have to take in context, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like not getting into the argument of these. Yep. This is useless. Of course, it's not useless. I just think that just watching some of these other power plays, there are certain little things that it's funny because Avs fans are so sick of the drop pass, right? But I think every fan base is sick of the drop pass.
All 31 teams use it pretty regularly on their power play.
They all have wrinkles that they throw in to try and fit their personnel. I loved what the Coyotes did the other day. I was watching it, and the little wrinkle that they had a forward who was just kind of circling, and as soon as they made the drop pass, Keller would basically be at center ice, like halfway through his circle. Yep. By the time the puck hit center ice, Keller was at top speed right at the blue line. So if they hit him with the puck, St. Louis's defense was caught flat-footed, and he was able to just walk right around them. And it was really, really good timing. And I loved it. I thought it was really, I thought it was a really cool wrinkle. I liked it a lot. And Vegas, for example, doesn't do any of that, and their power play sucks. Like watching it struggles to generate much of anything. There's not a lot happening with that power play right now, but the talented players on it are making it work.
All right. Speaking of talented players, Breckenridge Brewery, one of our talented players, the official beer of DNVR. We have 8 different kinds on tap down at the DNVR bar. And, of course, you can always go to their website, breckbrew.com, get yourself some Vanilla Tines Day action with their half-baked harvest and their vanilla porter, both delicious beers. You can head on down to the farmhouse as well and get amazing flavors from the source. They make awesome beer. I don't know what to tell you. If you haven't had it yet, go get it. If you haven't had some of their different flavors, try and go find it. I know it can be hard to find at places. Call 303-803-1380. Use code DNVR to save yourself $5 for curbside pickup. Yeah, they make delicious beer. I don't know what else to tell you other than we are also sponsored by Strava Craft Coffee, the CBD infused coffee that has really changed lives. You can get that from StravaCraftCoffee.com for 20% off when you use code DNVR. You can also get that cold brew down at the DNVR bar. So go give that a try today. They have helped with aches and pains, including migraines, IBS, joint pain, back pain, you name it. They will help a ton. Dude, Vanilla Tines Day is great, all right? Don't hate on vanilla. Vanilla is the best of the flavors. I won't hear any heresy on this one. Okay, second period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Let's go ahead and get to our next question here. This one from Mishi. What is Joe Sakic's biggest blunder as an Avs GM so far? I mean, let's face it. He was the GM of a team that had a 48-point season. Not only that, he failed to make any acquisitions in that. I guess technically he traded AHLers, right? But he didn't make any effective moves to the roster that year, particularly was incapable of selling anything to make the team better for the future. There are probably a couple of other arguments you can make. Maybe Derek Brassard. No,
Reto Bear and Brad Stewart were significantly worse than Derek Brassard.
Reto Bear is definitely a bad one. Brad Stewart's a weird one, right? Because that's more the contract that's
exactly.
the problem.
It's the two decisions together that really, really made it bad. Because the trade itself is one thing. It's a bad trade. But a second-round pick for a year of a guy, it's bad. You cut bait, you move on. Unless you've already signed a 35-plus player to a 2-year extension before he ever plays a game for you. That's how you make that shit worse.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they did.
Definitely not good.
I would definitely agree with you. I think the moves that didn't get made at the 16-17 deadline, we don't know what the value was, but you mean to tell me that they are the only rebuilding team ever in recent NHL history to not be able to sell off half their roster for draft picks?
Well, the most famous one, at least that we know of publicly, is Fedor Teutin. Fedor Teutin? Yeah, Fedor Teutin. That's his name.
Fedor Teutin.
Yeah. Who the deal was supposedly done, and then it gets pulled at the last second.
Yeah.
And Teutin retired after that. So the Avs turned something into nothing with that one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, both Bodker and Sean Matthias were really good in Colorado, though.
Yeah, like
Mikhail Bodker was a point-per-game player. The problem wasn't Mikhail Bodker. The problem was Matt Duchene and Nathan MacKinnon both got hurt in that stretch run.
And they ended up missing the playoffs. But
yeah, and Sean Matthias was exactly what they needed in the bottom six. You could argue that they could use a Sean Matthias type right now. Not exactly him, because he's been out of the league for a few years, but a guy like that.
Yeah, and we will get to that question. Don't you worry about that. Look, people tend to write off the early years of Joe Sakic as GM, and there's some credit to that because how much say did Patrick Waugh actually have over the roster at that point? And
yeah, I mean, it was a more complicated situation, definitely.
But Sakic was still the GM, right? So the final say should be on him.
Yep.
All right. we can head on over to the next question. Should the Avs consider acquiring Jonas Korpisalo to back up Grub and expose in the expansion draft, thus keeping the team that could challenge for multiple Stanley Cups together?
No.
I want to adjust this question a little bit. The Avs shouldn't acquire anyone as far as exposing for the expansion draft. You're going to lose a guy and you live with whoever you lose. The way I wanted to frame this question was, and we got multiple people asking about this, with Francouz's injury still a total unknown, should the Avs look at acquiring a goaltender of NHL caliber to be the backup?
Definitely.
Okay. Is Korpisalo on your list, or is there anyone that...
It kind of depends on what the price tag is.
Of course, the price tag matters, but
right now, if you're Columbus right now, who's your starting goaltender?
I guess Elvis.
So you're not even all that confident in that answer.
Yeah. I hear you. The problem with the goalie market in season will always be the same. Of the goalies that are out there are rarely quality caliber goaltending. You're usually getting backup goaltenders from teams well out of the playoffs, and that value is rarely strong, right?
Yeah. One Korpisalo, I would have a problem with because he has a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
And he's at $2.8 million. Like you're paying more money. You're paying whatever it costs in the trade to get the player anyway. But then you're also paying more money in a tight cap situation as it is for Korpisalo. I assume Francouz goes the other way in this.
Yeah, if you're not moving for him, you can't. Right.
It makes no sense whatsoever. It's at that point you're getting into this is a stupid idea. Mm-hmm. Not like this won't work. Like if Francouz isn't going the other way, it's just downright dumb. Yeah, because now you've got 2 backup goaltenders sitting on your books for a couple million, and you're like, okay, well, we took this third goaltender thing way too far now, especially if you bring Grubauer back. Like if you're gonna go Francouz and Korpisalo next year, okay, but no, bad. I don't think that they
is the overall answer here that it's just too hard to acquire a quality caliber goaltender in season?
No, I mean I think we see a couple of goalies pop around places, right? Like there's got to be somebody out there that they like that a team would be willing to move on from. You know, like I think he's hurt, but like an Alex Stalock type
that will get you by, isn't it? Yeah, crazy, but
a guy that's it wouldn't work out now because of their current situation, but a Casey DeSmith type, a guy that's got a cheap variable contract where if you put him in the game, like there's a decent chance you're going to get a competitive outing from him. And you can just see what happens.
For sure. So it's an interesting situation, right? Because especially with the Avs cap space, as you mentioned, a roster player has to go back the other way. And if it's not Francouz, it doesn't make a ton of sense. So the question becomes, what do the Avs have to add? If you're shipping an injured Francouz out plus something for a goaltender.
Yeah, and I think they have enough because you don't want to dip further into the draft picks.
Right. They're already pretty darn thin in the upcoming draft. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's like 6th and 7th, I am never, ever, ever going to. They could never pick in the 6th round or later again, and I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
Even though a couple of their recent late round guys look like they've got a little bit of bloom to them, I would be fine.
9 out of 10 times you give up that $2 scratch ticket for $5, you're going to make a lot more that way than whatever you scratch off.
All the Thomas Grice suggestions in the chat. That guy's 35 years old, making $3.6 million for the next year.
And
again,
cap value is
you have a cap problem.
Yeah.
And now you've almost doubled the cost of your backup. So you have to find value at that position. It is one of the most cost-efficient positions in all of hockey. You cannot pay through the nose for it. The same way that we talk about, the same way that we talk about, you can't sign Belmar types when you're in a cap crunch situation. You can't spend almost $2 million on a 4C. You've got $2 million dedicated to your backup goaltender, which is about the most you want to spend. You're not spending $3.6 million on your backup goaltender when you have a cap crunch. It's still 3.6, even if you combine Jost and Francouz, you're at 2.9 million, but you also have two players versus just the one that's you've now paid extra money for.
And
now, if they retain, it's a different conversation. If there's salary retention,
of course,
changes things.
But moving Jost hasn't solved the problem, right? If you move Jost, guess what? Now Kaut's on the roster, who's also making 800 something K. So you're not actually saving anything by moving Tyson Jost, really.
I mean, like this, we don't know what we don't know what Tyson Jost costs next year.
That's fair, but
that's that question mark. Like he's at 800, 900K, whatever the exact number is right now for this year. Very, very low chance that happens again next year.
But with that being said, his current production is not going to increase his cost very much.
So you can't 3.6 million for Thomas Greiss. The Zach's argument that it's just 1 year, like, okay, great. You've lost Brandon Saad now. Like, you're guaranteed you've lost Brandon Saad. Just to make sure that you have a backup for Philip Grubauer. And none of this considers whatever Grubauer is going to cost. None of this considers Landeskog or Makar's price tags. Because those are your big three contracts in the offseason. Landeskog, Makar, Grubauer. You don't know how much money you're losing in the expansion draft. So you have to be really, really careful and be cost efficient at certain positions. Dicking around with Thomas Greiss at $3.6 million for a year just because you can is insane. It's just there's no need for it. Again, if salary retention becomes part of the conversation, it's very different. So I'm all for them going and getting a backup of some kind, but it has to work. The money has to work. And you almost always are going to have to start with, okay, how much does he cost? Because you're in a cap spot right now where you can't just willy-nilly be like, we'll make it work.
We do need to take our break in a second here. One final part to this goaltender situation. Given the situation the Avs are in now, do you give Adam Werner a little bit of leash here to try and prove that he can be a functional NHL goaltender on the cheap for you?
I mean, I would say if Miska loses his next start, whenever that is, and it doesn't go well, if he's not all that competitive, if it looks like the last one,
maybe
give Werner a couple of games. But how many games does your backup need to lose before you start to decide it's time? Like for me right now, I think that's your biggest vulnerability. It's not JT Compher. As poorly as Compher has played to start the season, we've seen so much better from him in the past that I don't want to say I'm not concerned about it, but Compher and his contract and all that stuff, that'll be something that you have to probably work out in the offseason.
For sure.
For right now, you're probably just rolling the dice that he just gets better. So,
all right, we can go ahead and take our second period break there, as we are sponsored by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. Hope all of you cashed in on the single touchdown to double your money last night in the Super Bowl. Plenty of other betting options coming up for you, including UFC coming up this weekend, another chance to step into the octagon for UFC 258, and DraftKings will give you 100-1 odds. All you have to do is get in there, pick your fighter to step out and win the championship, and you get 100-1 odds. Easy money all the way around. There's no better way to put your MMA knowledge to the test than to put your money where your mouth is with DraftKings Sportsbook. If MMA is not for you, DraftKings also offers great odds and promotions on basketball, hockey, football, esports, table tennis, European underwater basket weaving, you name it. You can bet on just about anything over at DraftKings Sportsbook. They're safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DNVR when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 on your chosen title contender to win. Place your bet and watch the fist fly this weekend. Again, code DNVR for your chance at 100-1 odds on the main event Saturday night for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. Okay, third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. We have a super chat from Pin King asking thoughts of making the rest of the NHL season outdoor games since we really don't have fans. Get ready in the hotel and then ride to the game and back.
Given money it costs to put on an outdoor game.
Yeah, you have to build the rinks, you have to upkeep the rinks.
Yeah.
You have the complete unknowns of weather factors, especially for teams playing in warmer cities, becomes a huge issue.
You would need to bubble it up and have the entire league in the same bubble. You would need to put it in a relatively cold weather location, but not so cold that players want to die. And it would cost an enormous amount of money to do it because you would have to maintain that rink.
With that being said,
and play 100 games on it.
With that being said, some of the borderline meme tier changes that they're putting into effect, like removing the glass behind the benches and adding HEPA filters to their filtration systems, doesn't seem like it's that far off from just going to outdoor games.
I mean, like, if your goal is no in-game transmission of the virus, nailed it. Like, you've solved that problem 100%. But all of the other logistics of it, I mean, you would have to have the entire league would have to be there.
Yeah, it'd be.
And then how many games per day are you playing on that rink?
I mean, you'd build like a 5 to 10 rink like outdoor area, right? So you could play all the games on different sheets of ice, or at least a significant number of sheets of ice, so you didn't have to play like 6 games a day on one sheet. But again, the cost factor there would just be so out of control.
Yeah, they would be, and it would remove whatever limited possibilities there already are for fans.
Yeah,
because you're not going to build fans. You're not going to build an infrastructure for fans to come in. And even then, you're in one spot for the whole league.
And the reality of it is, like, I don't have to like it. You don't have to like it. The NHL is losing a ton of money, and there are places that will not continue the season without bringing fans in. Arizona's doing it, I know for sure. I think Florida's doing it as well. And the NHL is trying to salvage money here, and I would prefer no fans at any of the games until it's safer, but that's not the way the NHL sees it.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona already has, they're opened up to 1,500 people.
Yeah, I think it's 2,500 now.
It's gone up? Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, free space on the bingo square for the joke there, but yeah, that would be crazy.
Thank you for the super chat, Pin King. Getting to our next question.
I would love it personally. I think that would be awesome because then there would be no chance to pipe in any more crowd noise.
Fake noise, yeah.
Which, by the way, Vegas doesn't do and was awesome.
Yeah, the couple places that either don't do it or keep it quiet, I love the game sound, man. I think it's the best. But next question, this is kind of a summation of a bunch of questions we got coming from Andrei Marksov. Lots of talk about the Avs accruing cap space for the deadline, but who realistically is a target this season and who on the roster could just be replaced? The Avs, all right, the position everyone is talking about acquiring at the deadline is a 3C for the Avs.
Yeah, there's two of them. It's another goaltender and it's a 3C.
Yeah. It's pretty much that simple. Where are there any targets that pop up off the top of your head? Don't say Philip Deneau because we know it's not happening.
Yeah, Montreal's way too competitive for them to consider that conversation. Right. You have to look for the teams that are going to be on the outside looking in, and see if they could, if somebody might be able to get a good value somewhere. Yeah,
you'd have to look around the league, and the long term, like under the assumption that no one on the Avs is out for the rest of the season, since they're all listed as week to week, you're replacing actively a spot in the lineup, which means someone has to sit out. I think we've been pretty vocal on the fact that you could probably make an argument that Belmar has been the weakest player on the team night in and night out, at least for the forward core. You have the conversation of what does Matt Calvert's future look like? Is he just going to be out with concussion systems unknown for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, to be honest, Calvert's on an expiring contract. They should be planning right now for life without him just to be safe.
Yeah. So you can make an argument for possibly a bottom six winger as well, if that's the case. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you're talking about just about any bottom six forward in the league, depending on what you want. Here is everyone coming in with our favorite Sam Bennett conversation.
Like Sam Bennett is aggressively mediocre.
Yep. And here's the other part of this question is, again, same as the goalie conversation. What do you give up? If you're giving up more than like a 4th round pick for a bottom 6 player,
well, there would have to be, there's got to be some sort of money going the other way.
Some sort of a cash consideration of some kind would have to be happening here.
Yeah.
The Avs don't really have the cash of picks to dig too deep into because none of these guys are worth first rounders. We're not having any of that kind of conversation.
Right. It's not close.
Yeah. I don't know. The league is in such a weird place right now. I just don't.
It's because it's so hard to move money, right?
It's hard to move money. The division, the way the playoffs and the divisions are set up, there's very few teams that are going to feel like they're out of it.
Yep.
At least right now. And of course, we're not even a full month into the season, so of course, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see, but teams that are realistically out of it, Ottawa, Detroit, honestly, even LA probably can't say they're fully out of it yet. So
yeah, I think Arizona's had the nice little push here, but you still have to be looking at them as again, my problem is the term on some of these things because a Tyler Pitlick or a Johan Larsson would have been fine, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
There's the contract through next year is the issue, and that's not what you want to do.
if you have any faith in Martin Kaut or Shane Bowers making the lineup, you don't want to commit to anything past this year.
Yeah, well, and even then, it's iffy.
Just from a salary standpoint, I hear you, but it's
so the league is just in a weird spot where how many teams are really going to be looking to sell. I think this will be something that when we actually get closer to the lineup or to the deadline, and we're not 11 games into the season, this will naturally start. This picture will be clearer as we go.
I mean, the deadline's what, 30 games into the season, 35,
something like that. I think it's in. I still think it's in April or March.
I don't know. I'd have to look it up to tell you the exact date. But
so
Avs don't have any cap space to look at Bobby Ryan. That's no way.
Well, and where would Bobby Ryan play in Colorado?
He'd play in a bottom 6 role where he can't be effective.
You're already talking like, I mean, Bobby Ryan's only making $1 million this year. So
that's right. That's right. He took those way less. You're right.
Yeah, like he theoretically would be fine, but then
you don't. I guess the conversation on Bobby Ryan is don't get baited by his production in Detroit's top 6 because that's not a realistic role for him in Colorado.
Well, and that's the real question. Like, what does Bobby Ryan look like? It would be like Bobby Ryan would have to take a wing job in your bottom 6 somewhere.
Deadline is April 12th. Thank you, Jackson. Appreciated. So, yeah, it's like 40 games into the season, so we're like a little bit past 25% there. You could say maybe a third of the way for some of the teams that have played more games. So ask again in 15 games, I guess.
Yeah, I would also the quarantine period means you're probably not trading with a Canadian team.
Very true.
So you can remove the North Division from that conversation. Because they aren't going to want to wait 2 weeks to get whatever, if it's just draft picks, then that's okay. But if it's a player swap of any kind, they're not going to want to wait 2 weeks for that. So, I think there are going to be a lot of interesting conversations about the deadline this year. There are going to be some teams that are out of it that have intriguing players.
Yep. And I mean, let's be honest, the deadline is rarely for acquiring players longer term.
Right. You're talking like what Tampa did last year where they went and gave up a bunch of dudes.
Yep.
Or a bunch of picks for
Barclay Goodrow
and Blake Coleman, like guys who were on 2-year deals, that like cheap 2-year deals, made sense, but
not the norm at all.
Right, but those are also like easier guys to find. For what Colorado needs, it's like you have to answer the JT Comfort question. Okay, you've got a third line center. Now where does JT Comfort play for you? Because Donskoy's been fine.
Yep.
So you're not going to mess around with Donskoy, but you have to find a place for Comfort, assuming he's not part of the trade package. And right now, I'm going to assume he's not.
I don't think anyone's going to want any piece of that if Comfort's involved, given that he's making 3.5.
Yeah, I think this is more fan fantasy than it is reality.
Maybe.
But, because what is it? Comfort has 2 years left on his deal after this at $3.5 million. So,
yeah. And the NHL's talking about how much money they're losing this year, even with a Seattle influx of cash. Cap's probably not going to go up at least next year. You're looking at 2 years away for some cap relief there. Patrick Maroon has 1 goal in 9 games right now. Patrick Maroon is JT Comfort as far as production is concerned. So
yeah, I think if you were really looking for an interesting depth guy, you'd have to try and figure out the money. But I think you should look at a guy like Adam Lowry.
I think that's interesting. Other side note on Maroon really quick. Maroon's playing for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay cannot take on any cash. Full stop. So that's not realistic.
But he's meme tier suggestion because he's won 2 cups in a row.
Even if I thought he was a good acquisition, which personally I don't, it's not going to happen. Look, when we get closer to the deadline, there'll start to be rumors swirling, and we can have some of these conversations. Yeah. Right now, it feels like chat's just throwing out random names.
Yeah, Adam Lowry would be a guy that I would keep an eye on.
There you go.
As Winnipeg would have to be out of it, but
Adam Lowry, a possible chance. Our man Cygnus here coming in with, would you rather have the hiccups for the rest of your life or constantly feel like you have to sneeze?
I feel like you'd eventually get accustomed to the feeling like you have to sneeze.
As a person who has had the hiccups for like 6 hours, I woke up the next day and my diaphragm was so painfully sore that I never wanted to experience that again. So definitely have to sneeze over hiccups by like a long shot for me.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about the feeling of something versus the act of actually doing it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, there are those people, right, that have had the hiccups for like 5 years or whatever. And they just like live. It's weird though, because they hiccup like 6 times a day. So maybe it wouldn't be that bad if that's what we're considering. Yeah. But they like haven't gotten rid of the hiccups for years. I don't know. It'd be a really strange conversation.
I guess it would depend on the extent of the hiccup.
Yeah. If it's like once every like 4 hours or something, that'd be fine.
Yeah, definitely. Like you're just like, oh, this is just a thing that happens versus something that's constantly happening. And it's like, how can you even function with this
even if it
on?
Was sometime, like even if it's like every couple minutes, like 15 times an hour would be awful. That would be so terrible to deal with constantly.
I mean, 5 times an hour would be awful.
Yeah, I think it'd be manageable, but it would suck.
Yeah, and I don't think feeling like you're about to sneeze would be something that would prevent you from doing much of anything. It would just be a little uncomfortable. I think you'd get used to it.
Right, like the first hour would be awful, and then it'd just be like, this is just how I feel now. Yeah,
it would probably be really uncomfortable for the first few days. Like when you have like the flu and like that bridge of your nose is like really tingly all the time because you're like your body's like fighting infection and you're like, F this is awful, this is the worst thing ever, and like you can't sleep and it's all in it. I feel like it would be like that for a few days and then you would eventually just adjust.
Yeah, I think so too.
Humans have an incredible ability to adapt when they absolutely have to, when given no choice.
All right. Let's get to our last question, which I already know the answer to, but if you haven't watched our video game podcast, go check out DNVR Gaming's podcast. AJ, I know you're playing World of Warcraft. You sneaking in anything else over there?
Honestly, not right now. We really just, when the season was like on, we didn't really have time to be doing it. I was limited to very little WoW at all.
Same.
And now that we're on impromptu spring break, it's just catching up on WoW. And then I haven't really had much time to do a whole lot else. So,
all right. Let this be a lesson, kids.
Yeah.
MMOs will take up all of your time.
Well, and that's the cost efficiency, right? You pay $60 for a video game, and you get X number of hours out of it.
Yeah.
You play an MMO, you as much as I hate it, $15 a month for the subscription, and you get an insane amount of time.
Value hours, yeah.
Yeah. We killed Denathrius on normal. How far are we on heroic?
We're
at 6 of 10, I think.
But we killed Council and not Lady, which is backwards.
Yeah. So we're at 6 of 10, but we did kill council.
And I killed Heroic Denathrius outside of the guild. So yes.
Did your other guild already do it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I have not killed Heroic Denathrius yet, but we're working. We're I feel like we'll probably get to 8 of 10 this week.
Definitely 7-10.
7-10. Yeah, sorry. I have no idea.
If we rated for like an extra 30 minutes last week, I think we would get 7-10. But
yeah. I'm not sure how Sludgefist will go. I really just don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see on Sludgefist, but we'll get there. We have like 2 more months before the next patch. We'll get 10-10 easy. Anyway, if you like a conversation like this, go watch the DNVR Gaming Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. You can hit that bell if you want notifications every single time we go live. We are live 5 days a week with the Avalanche off. That means 1 p.m. every single day. So be sure to show up and tune in. Appreciate all y'all in the chat. Hopefully we answered all y'all's questions for the most part. A lot of you all had the same questions for the most part as well. So seems like we hit most of the major topics. Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching, listening, however you consume the podcast. Highly recommend you do get it on YouTube, though. The visuals kind of useful at times. Other than that, appreciate y'all. We are out of here. Thank you, and we will see you guys again tomorrow.